The gunshot echoed through Willow Creek, Texas, sending Bethany Vance sprinting through the muddy streets, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The rain pelted her face, plastering her dark hair to her pale cheeks as she darted between buildings, desperate to escape the men on horseback who thundered behind her. She clutched a blood-stained handkerchief in her trembling hand, evidence of her innocence in a crime she didn't commit. "There she is," a gruff voice shouted. "The Vance woman, don't let her escape." Bethany's breath came in ragged gasps as she ducked into an alley, pressing herself against the rough wooden wall of the general store. The sound of horses grew closer, hooves splashing through puddles as Sheriff Harmon's deputies closed in. She had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide in this town that had turned against her since her father's murder 3 days ago. A strong hand suddenly clamped over her mouth from behind. Bethany struggled, kicking backward, but her captor held firm. "Stop fighting," a deep voice whispered against her ear. "I'm trying to help you." The man dragged her backward through an open doorway and into a dimly lit storeroom. He released her mouth, but maintained a firm grip on her arm as he closed the door with his boot, shutting out the sound of approaching horsemen. "Who are you?" Bethany demanded, trying to steady her voice despite her terror. In the faint light streaming through a dirty window, she could make out the silhouette of a tall man in a cowboy hat. "Name's Noah Quinn," he replied, peering cautiously through a crack in the door. "And you're in a heap of trouble, Miss Vance. How do you know my name?" "Everyone in 3 counties knows your name now," he said, his voice low and serious. "They're saying you killed your pa for his money." "I didn't," Bethany said fiercely. "I found him that way. Someone else shot him and stole the deed to our ranch." Noah turned to look at her fully for the first time, and Bethany was struck by the intensity in his blue eyes. His face was weathered by sun and wind, with several days' worth of stubble darkening his jaw. He couldn't be much older than her own 22 years. "I believe you," he said simply. Bethany blinked in surprise. "You do? Why?" "Because Harmon's been trying to get his hands on the Vance property for years. Your pa refused to sell and now he's dead. Doesn't take much figuring." Outside, horses clattered past their hiding place. Noah pressed a finger to his lips and they both held their breath until the sound receded. "You'll be safe until they're gone," he whispered. "At least for tonight. I've got a place outside town where they won't find you." "Why would you help me?" Bethany asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "You don't know me." Noah's expression darkened. "Let's just say I've got my own reasons for not trusting Sheriff Harmon. Now, are you coming or would you prefer to wait here for them to circle back?" Bethany hesitated only a moment. "I'll come with you." Noah led her through the back of the storeroom to where a chestnut mare was tethered. "Can you ride?" "Better than most men," she replied with a hint of defiance. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Then let's go. Stay close and keep quiet." They mounted together, Bethany sitting behind Noah with her arms wrapped around his waist. She was acutely aware of his solid presence as they slipped out of town, taking a path through a dense grove of cottonwoods that provided cover from prying eyes. The rain had stopped, but the night air was cool against Bethany's damp clothes. She shivered involuntarily, which caused Noah to glance back at her. "Not much farther," he assured her, true to his word. Within 20 minutes they approached a small cabin nestled against the base of a rocky hill. No light shone from within and no smoke curled from the chimney. "Is this your home?" Bethany asked as Noah helped her down from the horse. "One of them," he replied cryptically. "I move around, makes me harder to find." Inside, the cabin was simple but clean. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, while a narrow bed occupied another. A rough-hewn table with 2 chairs stood in the center of the single room. Noah quickly started a fire, then rummaged through a trunk and produced a faded blue shirt and a pair of trousers. "These will be too big, but they're dry. You can change behind that screen while I make some coffee." Bethany gratefully accepted the clothes and ducked behind the screen in the corner. As she peeled off her sodden dress, she couldn't help but wonder about the mysterious cowboy who had come to her aid. Was he truly helping her out of some sense of justice? Or did he have his own agenda? When she emerged, Noah had coffee brewing and was slicing bread and cheese on the table. He glanced up and something flickered in his eyes before he quickly looked away. "Better?" he asked, keeping his attention on the food. "Much," Bethany replied, rolling up the sleeves of his oversized shirt. "Thank you." They ate in silence for a few minutes before Bethany could no longer contain her questions. "Mr. Quinn, Noah," he corrected. "Noah, then. You said you had reasons not to trust Sheriff Harmon. What did you mean?" Noah's jaw tightened as he stared into his coffee cup. "Harmon isn't just corrupt, he's dangerous. 2 years ago, he accused my brother of rustling cattle. Evidence was planted, witnesses were threatened, and before I could do anything about it, my brother was hanging from a tree." Bethany gasped softly. "I'm so sorry." "I've been gathering evidence against Harmon ever since," Noah continued. "He's been working with some powerful people to take over small ranches throughout the county. I think your father was his latest target." "That's why Pa was killed," Bethany said, realization dawning. "The deed that was stolen, it wasn't just about our ranch. It was about the water rights. We control access to the river for miles." Noah nodded grimly. "Exactly. Whoever controls that water controls every ranch for 20 miles. "I have to get that deed back," Bethany said, setting down her cup with determination. "It's the only way to prove my innocence and hold my father's killers accountable." "It's too dangerous," Noah argued. "Harmon has deputies all over the county looking for you." "If you're caught, then I won't get caught," Bethany interrupted. "Will you help me, Mr. Quinn, or am I truly on my own?" Noah studied her face for a long moment, taking in her stubborn determination. Finally, he sighed. "I must be losing my mind. Yes, I'll help you, but we do this my way." "Understood," Bethany nodded, relief washing over her. "Understood." "Get some sleep," Noah said, standing up. "You can take the bed, I'll keep watch." "Where will you sleep?" "I'll manage," he replied, moving toward the door. "Tomorrow we start planning." As Bethany settled onto the narrow bed, she watched Noah's silhouette against the window, his vigilant stance reassuring her even as her mind raced with questions. Whatever happened next, she was no longer alone in her fight for justice. Dawn broke with a gentle pink glow on the horizon when Bethany awoke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Noah stood at the small iron stove, his back to her as he cooked. He changed his shirt and looked freshly washed, his dark hair still damp at the nape of his neck. "Morning," she said, sitting up and self-consciously running a hand through her tangled hair. "Hope you're hungry," he replied without turning around. "We've got a long day ahead." Over breakfast, Noah explained his plan. "I need to go into town to gather information." "You'll stay here where it's safe." "I won't be left behind," Bethany protested immediately. "This is my fight." "And you'll be no good to anyone if you're caught," Noah countered. "Look, I know people in town who will talk to me. I can find out where Harmon might be keeping that deed." "And then what? We steal it back?" Bethany asked skeptically. "If necessary," Noah said with a shrug. "Unless you've got a better idea," Bethany thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Actually, I might. There's a man named Franklin Taylor who worked as my father's lawyer. If we can get to him, he might be able to help us legally." "Taylor," Noah frowned. "Last I heard, he was in Chisholm Ranch, about 2 days' ride from here." "Then that's where we need to go," Bethany said firmly. Noah considered her words, then nodded reluctantly. "All right. But we'll need supplies, and I still need to go into town. You stay here, and I mean it this time. I'll be back before sundown." After Noah departed, Bethany busied herself tidying the cabin and examining their limited resources. In a small drawer, she found paper and a stub of pencil. She began writing down everything she remembered about the night of her father's murder, hoping to piece together clues that might help their case. The hours dragged on, and as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, anxiety crept into Bethany's thoughts. What if Noah had been captured? What if he'd decided to abandon her after all? Just as she was considering whether to risk venturing out to look for him, the sound of hoofbeats approached the cabin. Bethany grabbed a rifle from above the fireplace and took position beside the window, her heart hammering. Relief flooded through her when she recognized Noah's tall figure dismounting from his horse. She lowered the rifle and opened the door, but her smile faded when she saw his grim expression. "What happened?" she asked as he strode past her, leading his horse to the small lean-to shelter behind the cabin. "Harmon's men are everywhere," Noah replied tersely. "They've doubled the bounty on your head, $500 now." Bethany paled. "That's a fortune." "It means every bounty hunter and desperate soul for 100 miles will be looking for you," Noah said, returning with his saddlebags. "We need to leave tonight." As they packed their meager supplies, Noah explained what he'd learned in town. "Harmon's claiming he has a signed confession from you, saying you killed your father for the ranch." "What?" Bethany exclaimed. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "Forgery isn't exactly difficult for someone like Harmon," Noah said grimly. "But I did find out that he's meeting with some investors tomorrow at his office. That might be our chance to search for the deed. Or we could still head to Chisholm Ranch to find Mr. Taylor," Bethany suggested. Noah considered both options. "Taylor is the safer bet, but it would take longer. If we go after the deed now, we might be able to end this quicker." "But it's more dangerous," Bethany said quietly. Noah looked at her intently. "This is your fight, you decide." Bethany took a deep breath. "Let's go after the deed. If we fail, we can still try to reach Mr. Taylor." They departed under cover of darkness, taking a circuitous route to avoid the main roads where Harmon's men might be patrolling. Noah had brought a second horse, a steady gray mare that Bethany rode with confidence. They traveled through the night, speaking little but growing increasingly aware of each other's presence. When they stopped briefly to rest the horses by a small creek, Noah offered Bethany his canteen. "You're not what I expected," he admitted as she drank. "What did you expect?" she asked, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "Someone softer," he replied honestly. "Most women I've known would be falling apart by now." Bethany handed the canteen back to him, their fingers brushing momentarily. "My father raised me to be strong. After my mother died, it was just the two of us. He taught me everything he knew about ranching, riding, even shooting." "He sounds like a good man," Noah said softly. "He was," Bethany said, blinking back sudden tears. "And I won't let his killer get away with this." Noah reached out hesitantly, then let his hand fall back to his side. "We should keep moving. We need to reach town before dawn." They arrived at the outskirts of Willow Creek just as the eastern sky began to lighten. Noah led them to a small, abandoned barn on the edge of town. "We'll wait here until tonight," he explained as they unsaddled the horses. "Harmon's meeting is scheduled for midday, which means he'll be occupied for at least a couple of hours. And his office will be empty," Bethany concluded. "That's the hope," Noah agreed. "But even if he leaves a deputy behind, I know a way in through the back window." As they settled down to rest, Bethany found herself studying Noah's profile in the dim light. There was something compelling about his quiet strength and determination. She wondered what his life had been like before tragedy had set him on this path of vengeance. "How did you end up here?" she asked suddenly. "You don't seem like a man who would normally hide in abandoned barns." Noah's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "No, what kind of man do I seem like?" "The kind who has a home, a purpose," Bethany replied. "Before all this, I mean." Noah was quiet for so long that Bethany thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. "I was a Texas Ranger once, believed in justice and the law with my whole heart." "What happened?" "I discovered that the law isn't always just," he said bitterly. "After my brother was killed, I tried to work within the system to expose Harmon, but the corruption went deeper than I realized. Someone tipped him off, and I barely escaped with my life." "So you've been hiding ever since?" Bethany asked softly. "Not hiding," Noah corrected. "Waiting, gathering evidence, looking for a way to bring him down that would stick." He gave her an appraising look. "Then you came along." "How does that change anything, a murdered rancher and a stolen deed?" "That's the kind of crime that might interest the federal marshals, especially if there's proof of corruption involving water rights." Noah's eyes gleamed with renewed purpose. "This could be what we need to finally expose Harmon. If we can find the deed," Bethany reminded him. "We will," Noah assured her with quiet confidence. They spent the day in the barn, taking turns keeping watch while the others slept. As evening approached, Noah retrieved a bundle from his saddlebag and unwrapped a small revolver which he offered to Bethany. "You know how to use this?" he asked. Bethany nodded, checking the cylinder with practiced ease. "Pa made sure of it." "Good," Noah said, looking impressed. "But I hope you won't need it. The plan is to get in and out without being seen." As darkness fell, they made their way cautiously into town, keeping to the shadows. The sheriff's office sat at the end of the main street, its windows dark except for a single lamp burning in the front room. "There's still someone inside," Noah whispered as they crouched behind a water trough across the street. "What now?" Bethany asked, her hand resting on the revolver at her hip. "We need a distraction," Noah mused, scanning the quiet street. His eyes landed on the saloon several doors down where raucous laughter and piano music spilled into the night. "Wait here." Before Bethany could protest, Noah slipped away, disappearing into the shadows. She watched anxiously, ready to flee if anything went wrong. Minutes stretched like hours until suddenly shouting erupted from the saloon. Men poured onto the street, fists flying in what appeared to be a massive brawl. The deputy emerged from the sheriff's office, hand on his gun as he hurried toward the disturbance. The moment he was out of sight, Bethany felt a hand on her arm. "Now," Noah urged, pulling her toward the back of the sheriff's building. With practiced efficiency, Noah jimmied open a window and helped Bethany climb through. They found themselves in a small storage room adjacent to Harmon's private office. "Start looking," Noah instructed in a hushed voice. The deed would be something Harmon would keep close. They worked quickly and methodically, searching through drawers and cabinets. Bethany's fingers trembled with urgency as she rifled through stacks of papers, knowing that every second increased their danger of discovery. "Here," Noah said suddenly, pulling a false bottom from a desk drawer. "Look at this." Inside the hidden compartment was a leather document holder. Bethany hurried to his side as he opened it, revealing several papers including her father's deed with the distinctive red seal of the land office. "That's it," she whispered excitedly. Noah was examining another document. "And this appears to be correspondence between Harmon and someone named Whitaker about damming the river and selling water rights. This proves conspiracy." A triumphant smile spread across Bethany's face as she gathered the evidence. "We've got him." Their victory was short-lived. The sound of boots on the boardwalk outside froze them both. Through the window, they could see the silhouette of the deputy returning. "Out the back," Noah urged, helping Bethany return the way they'd come. They had barely cleared the window when the deputy entered the office. They pressed themselves against the wall, hardly daring to breathe as the man moved about inside. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, the light in the office dimmed as the deputy apparently settled in for the night. Noah motioned for Bethany to follow him as they crept away from the building. They had nearly reached the end of the alley when a voice called out behind them. "Stop right there." Noah whirled, pushing Bethany behind him as the deputy advanced, his gun drawn. "You're trespassing on county property," the man growled, squinting in the darkness. His eyes widened in recognition. "Quinn, and is that it is? It's the Vance woman." "Run," Noah whispered to Bethany, then lunged toward the deputy. The men collided as Bethany hesitated, torn between fleeing with the evidence and helping Noah. The deputy's gun went off, the shot going wild as they struggled. Noah delivered a solid punch that sent the man staggering backward, but the deputy recovered quickly. "Go," Noah shouted to Bethany. "Get to the horses." This time, Bethany obeyed, clutching the precious documents as she ran toward the abandoned barn where they'd left their mounts. Behind her, she heard another shot, followed by shouts as the commotion drew attention from the saloon. Her heart pounding, she reached the barn and hastily saddled both horses, leading them outside just as Noah came running up, clutching his arm. "You're hurt," Bethany exclaimed, seeing the dark stain spreading on his sleeve. It's just a graze, Noah dismissed, though his face was pale in the moonlight. We need to move. They'll be organizing a search party any minute. They mounted quickly and rode hard out of town, taking a different route than the one they'd arrived on. Noah led them south, away from his cabin, pushing their horses as fast as was safe in the darkness. "Where are we going?" Bethany called as they galloped across open country. "Chisholm Ranch," Noah replied grimly. "Your lawyer friend is our best hope now. We need to get these documents to someone with authority." They rode through the night, stopping only when their horses needed rest. During one such break, Bethany insisted on examining Noah's wound by the light of a small fire. "It needs cleaning," she said, gently rolling up his sleeve to reveal an angry gash along his upper arm. "Or it will fester." Noah winced as she used water from their canteen to wash away the dried blood. "How do you know about treating wounds?" he asked, trying to distract himself from the pain. "Ranch life," Bethany replied simply. "Pa got thrown from a horse once and broke his arm. The bone came right through the skin. I had to set it and stitch him up myself." Noah raised an eyebrow, impressed despite his discomfort. "You're quite a woman, Bethany Vance." Their eyes met over his wounded arm, and something electric passed between them. Bethany looked away first, busying herself with tearing a strip from her petticoat to bandage his arm. "There," she said finally, securing the makeshift bandage. "That should hold until we can find a proper doctor." "Thank you," Noah said softly, his hand covering hers briefly before she pulled away. They continued their journey at first light, pushing themselves and their horses to cover ground quickly. By nightfall of the second day, the lights of Chisholm Ranch appeared on the horizon. "We made it," Bethany breathed, relief washing over her exhausted body. Noah nodded grimly. "Let's just hope your lawyer friend is still here and willing to help." They rode into town cautiously, aware that word of their escape might have spread. The main street was quiet as they approached a modest building with a sign reading "Taylor and Associates, Attorneys at Law." A light still burned inside despite the late hour. Noah dismounted and helped Bethany down, steadying her when her legs wobbled from 2 days of hard riding. "Stay behind me," he instructed as they approached the door. Noah knocked firmly. After a moment, footsteps approached, and the door opened to reveal a middle-aged man with spectacles and a concerned expression. "We're closed for the evening," he began, then froze as he recognized Bethany. "Miss Vance." "Good heavens, child, everyone's saying you're a fugitive, Mr. Taylor," Bethany said with relief. "Please, we need your help. I didn't kill my father. We have proof." The lawyer glanced nervously up and down the street, then ushered them inside, quickly closing and locking the door behind them. "This is a dangerous situation," Taylor said, leading them to his office at the back of the building. "Sheriff Harmon has sent telegrams to every town in the territory with your description, Miss Vance. And yours too, Mr. Quinn," Noah supplied. "Noah Quinn." Recognition flickered in Taylor's eyes. "The former ranger, the one who's been making accusations against Harmon for years." Noah nodded grimly. "Not just accusations anymore, we have evidence." Bethany produced the documents they'd stolen from Harmon's office. Taylor adjusted his spectacles and examined them carefully, his expression growing increasingly grave. "This is very serious indeed," he said finally. "Water rights conspiracy, forgery, likely murder. This goes beyond county jurisdiction. We need federal involvement." "Can you arrange that?" Bethany asked anxiously. Taylor nodded slowly. "As it happens, Judge Wilson from the federal circuit is in town for the week. He's an honest man who won't be intimidated by local politics. If we present this evidence to him tomorrow morning," a loud knock at the front door interrupted him. Taylor motioned for them to stay quiet as he went to investigate. Through the office doorway, they could see him speaking with someone, his body language becoming increasingly tense. "Who is it?" Noah whispered to Bethany as they strained to listen. "I can't tell," she replied, her hand instinctively moving to the revolver at her hip. Taylor returned moments later, his face ashen. "It's Deputy Collins from Willow Creek. He says he's tracking fugitives and has reason to believe they're in Chisholm Ranch. He's organizing a search of the town with local lawmen." "Is there another way out?" Noah asked urgently. "The back door leads to an alley," Taylor replied, gathering the documents and placing them in his briefcase. "Take these. There's a boarding house run by Mrs. Peterson at the end of Pine Street. Tell her Franklin sent you and pay for a room under different names. I'll come for you at dawn to meet with the judge." They slipped out the back door as instructed, keeping to the shadows as they made their way through town. Noah led their horses by the reins, trying to minimize noise as they navigated the quiet streets. The boarding house was a 2-story structure with a small sign in the window. The elderly woman who answered their knock seemed skeptical of travelers arriving so late but softened when they mentioned Taylor's name. "Franklin's vouching for you, is he?" she asked, eyeing them critically. "Well, that's good enough for me. I've got one room left at the back of the house." "Will that do?" Noah and Bethany exchanged a glance. "It will have to," Noah replied. Mrs. Peterson showed them to a small but clean room with a single bed and a washstand. "Breakfast is at 7, she informed them before departing. Once alone, an awkward silence fell between them. Noah cleared his throat. "You take the bed, I'll sleep on the floor." Bethany was too exhausted to argue. She removed her boots and hat but remained otherwise clothed as she sank gratefully onto the bed. Noah settled himself on the floor beside her, his back against the wall and his gun within easy reach. "You think it will work?" Bethany asked softly in the darkness. "Will the judge believe us?" "The evidence speaks for itself," Noah replied, "and Taylor seems confident, and afterward," she pressed. "What happens then?" Noah was quiet for a long moment. "Justice, I hope, for your father, for my brother, for everyone Harmon has hurt, and for you," Bethany asked. "What will you do when this is over?" Another pause, longer this time. "I haven't thought that far ahead," Noah admitted. "For 2 years, bringing Harmon down has been my only purpose." "You could go back to being a ranger," Bethany suggested. Noah sighed. "I don't know if that path is open to me anymore. What about you?" "Will you return to your ranch if I can?" Bethany said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's all I have left of my family, but it will be lonely there now." In the darkness, Noah's hand found hers, his calloused fingers intertwining with her own. "You don't have to be alone, Bethany," he said softly. Her heart skipped a beat at his words, at the warmth of his touch. "Noah," a loud commotion from the street interrupted her. They both stiffened, listening intently as voices and footsteps approached the boarding house. "They're searching the buildings," Noah whispered, rising to his feet and helping Bethany up. "We need to move." Grabbing their few possessions and the crucial documents, they slipped out the window onto a narrow porch roof. Noah went first, dropping quietly to the ground before helping Bethany down. They had nearly reached the stable behind the boarding house when a lantern beam cut through the darkness. "There," someone shouted. "I see them." Noah pushed Bethany toward the stable door. "Get to the horses." They rushed inside, quickly saddling their mounts as voices and footsteps converged outside. Noah helped Bethany onto her horse, then mounted his own. "Ready?" he asked, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. Bethany nodded, determination replacing her fear. Together, they burst from the stable at a gallop, nearly trampling the 2 deputies who tried to block their path. Shouts and gunshots followed them as they thundered down the main street and out of town, heading north into the darkness. "Where now?" Bethany called as they rode. "Judge Wilson has a ranch 5 miles north of town," Noah replied. "Taylor mentioned it earlier." "If we can reach him directly," a shot rang out behind them, uncomfortably close. Noah urged his horse faster, and Bethany followed suit. Both of them bent low over their mounts' necks as they raced across the open country. The pursuit continued for miles, the gap between them and Harmon's men gradually widening as their fresher horses outpaced the deputies. Finally, Noah led them into a densely wooded area, where they slowed to navigate the terrain more carefully. I think we lost them, Noah said, listening intently to the night sounds around them. For now, at least. Dawn was breaking as they emerged from the woods onto a well-maintained road. In the distance, a large ranch house was visible, smoke curling from its chimney. That must be the judge's place, Bethany said, hope rising in her chest. They approached cautiously, alert for any sign of Harmon's men. A ranch hand met them at the gate, eyeing them suspiciously. We need to see Judge Wilson, Noah explained. It's an urgent legal matter. The ranch hand hesitated, then nodded. Wait here, I'll let the judge know. Minutes later, a distinguished older man with silver hair and a trimmed beard emerged from the house, studying them with keen eyes. I'm Wilson, he announced. What's this about? Noah dismounted, helping Bethany down before addressing the judge. Sir, we have evidence of criminal conspiracy, corruption, and murder involving Sheriff Harmon of Willow Creek. Franklin Taylor was going to bring this to you officially, but we were forced to flee. The judge's eyebrows rose. Serious accusations. You have proof? Bethany produced the documents from inside her jacket. Yes, sir, right here. After examining the papers, Judge Wilson's expression turned grave. Come inside, he said. We have much to discuss. Over the next hour, they presented their full case to the judge, who listened attentively, asking occasional questions. When they finished, he sat back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. This is indeed compelling evidence, he acknowledged. I'll issue warrants for Harmon and his associates immediately. My clerk will take sworn statements from both of you. What about the deputies pursuing us? Noah asked. I'll send my own men to intercept them, the judge assured him. You'll both remain under my protection until this matter is resolved. Relief washed over Bethany and she sagged against Noah, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotion. His arm came around her shoulders, steady and supportive. It's over, he murmured against her hair. We did it. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Federal marshals arrested Sheriff Harmon and several of his conspirators. Witness after witness came forward, no longer afraid to speak out against the corrupt sheriff. The evidence was overwhelming. Bethany was formally cleared of all charges related to her father's death. The true killer, one of Harmon's deputies who had confessed in exchange for leniency, was taken into custody. On their final day at Judge Wilson's ranch, Bethany and Noah stood on the porch, watching the sunset. The judge had offered them continued hospitality until arrangements could be made for Bethany's return to her ranch, which had been legally restored to her ownership. So, Noah said quietly, you'll be going home soon. Bethany nodded, studying his profile. What about you? Have you decided what comes next? Noah turned to face her fully. Judge Wilson offered me a position as a federal marshal, said they need men with integrity who know the territory. That's wonderful, Bethany said, genuinely pleased for him. Will you take it? I'm considering it, Noah replied, his eyes never leaving her face. But there's something else I need to consider first. What's that? Bethany asked, her heart quickening at the intensity in his gaze. Noah took her hands in his. These past days with you, they've changed me, Bethany. For 2 years, I've lived for nothing but vengeance. Now, for the first time since my brother died, I'm thinking about the future. And what do you see in that future? Bethany whispered. You, he said simply, if you'll have me. I know it's sudden, and I understand if you need time. Bethany silenced him by placing her fingers against his lips. It's not sudden, she said softly. Sometimes life brings people together exactly when they need each other most. You found me when I was at my lowest, Noah Quinn. You believed me when no one else would. Because I saw the truth in your eyes, Noah murmured, drawing her closer. The same truth I see now. Their lips met in a tender kiss that deepened with shared emotion, relief, hope, and the promise of something lasting. When they finally parted, Bethany rested her head against Noah's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Come home with me, she said. The ranch is too big for one person anyway. We could build something good there together. Noah smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Nothing would make me happier. 2 months later, they stood hand in hand on the porch of the Vance ranch house, now restored and thriving under their joint care. Noah divided his time between his duties as a newly appointed federal marshal and working the land alongside Bethany. "Remember when you said I'd be safe until they were gone?" Bethany asked, leaning against his shoulder as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues. Noah chuckled. "I did say that, didn't I? Turned out to be a bit longer than I planned." "I'm glad," Bethany said, turning in his arms to face him, "because now I get to be safe with you forever." "Forever," Noah agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss as the day's last light gilded their future with hope.